In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 steps to have more effective meetings so that you can make sure the time that you spent is focused, on point, and actually moving towards your goals and targets. Step number 3 is also going to help you get out of the cycle of your meetings overrunning. So instead, you can wrap them up with clear action steps and everyone being on the same page. If you're new here, though, my name's Byron Morrison. I'm the author of The Effective CEO. And on my channel, I put out videos on everything from leadership to mindset and getting more done in a day. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss future videos. One of the biggest frustrations I hear from the CEOs and leaders I work with is how much of their days are spent in endless meetings that don't actually achieve anything. To make matters worse, they go on far too long, draining their energy and bandwidth, meaning it negatively impacts everything else they need to get done. If you look at the best CEOs, though, when it comes to running meetings, they're fully present and engaged. They ask great questions. They keep everyone focused on achieving a goal. You can't do any of that, though, if you're not properly prepared, if there's not a clear plan in place, or if you're spending half the time being distracted on your phone and responding to emails. And this is why, if you want your meetings to be a better use of your time that actually moves things forward, you have to become intentional with how they're spent. Because of that, the first step to running an effective meeting is taking time to properly prepare. It's essential that you figure out in advance what is the purpose and outcome of the meeting. Take some time to really think about, like, what are your current challenges? What are your goals and targets? What needs to be discussed? And what are the key points that need to be addressed in order for this to be a good use of your time? It also helps to reverse engineer it. If you think ahead to the end of the meeting, what would need to have been talked about or achieved for this to be a successful use of time? By figuring this out in advance, you can then put together an agenda for what needs to be covered. Not only will this help you maximize the time, you can also share this with the rest of your team in advance. That way they can prepare for the meeting as well. And by seeing the agenda, they can also think about any questions they need to ask or any data and reports or additional context they need to bring with them that will shape or impact the conversations. Like I said, though, knowing the outcome of the meeting is gonna come through proper preparation. It's essential that you allocate some time to really sit down and go through what needs to be covered. I know that it's not the most glamorous of tasks, especially when you're busy, but if you don't have a clear focus, then you risk wasting time or just figuring it out as you go along. Being clear on the outcome also makes it easier to keep everyone's focus on track, because if they start drifting off topic, you can pull them back on course. Also, if a new idea is introduced or a different challenge comes up, you can then always table it and say to people, look, yes, this is important, but it's not aligned with what we're talking about right now. So let's put it aside and either come back to it later or set up another time to discuss it. So that's step number 1, taking time to properly prepare so you have a clear agenda and outcome in mind so that you know exactly what you want to get out of that meeting. To take it a step further, I'd also advise starting your meeting by going through this as well, saying to everyone, this is the reason why we're here. These are the challenges we're facing. This is what we want to get clear on or move forward. That's going to frame and set the tone for their entire meeting, which again is going to help keep everyone aligned so you can ensure that you're maximizing that time. Step number 2 is to set clear time expectations up front. Because the reality is, if you give someone an hour, they'll find a way to talk for an hour. Whereas if they know they only have 30 minutes, they're going to be far more focused and honed in. I've also found that in a lot of situations, shorter meetings are a far more productive use of time because they make it more likely that people are going to address the issue at hand. Whereas if they perceive that there's no rush, that's when they tend to start wasting time making small talk about their weekend or discussing the weather. And there's a time and a place to build rapport, and a meeting isn't it. If people know that there's a clearly defined outcome, though, and that there's a limited time to figure out a solution, that makes it a lot easier to get them to operate with a sense of urgency and intention in order to move things forward. Setting boundaries with time works for phone conversations as well. If someone calls you for help with a problem, if you say, look, I've only got 5 minutes, that's going to make it more likely they're going to get straight to the point, where if you just answer the phone, that's when they go off on tangents or introduce new ideas ideas or talk about things that aren't actually relevant. This is why if you want to really maximize your time, set clear expectations with what's available, and it's going to make it easier to keep people focused and on point. Step number 3 is implementing what I call the 25% rule. Most meetings tend to be run with no real clear structure, and because of that, time gets away from people, so meetings are either unfocused or they end without a clear resolution. I'm sure you've been there where a meeting runs from 1 until 2, and then a couple of minutes from the end, people realize what time it is and they start to panic, causing them to scramble to finish or for the meeting to overrun. Well, a simple solution to this is the 25% rule, where when you have 25% of the meeting left, that's when you start transitioning towards wrapping up. So let's say a meeting is an hour. Well, you set a timer so that at 45 minutes, you communicate to everyone, look, we have 15 minutes left. What else do we need to cover? Figure out the next steps, answer any questions, set any deadlines and accountability, and ensure that everyone has everything they need in order to move forward. By doing so, you're going to ensure that those last few minutes are laser focused and outcome driven rather than just rushing to cram everything in. So there you have it, 3 steps to running more effective meetings. But I've got a bonus tip for you as well, because one pattern that I tend to see with CEOs I work with is often their days are structured in a way where they have back-to-back meetings. The problem with this is it can leave them bouncing around from one thing to the next, where they don't have a moment to stop and think between them, let alone prepare and figure out what they need to do next. To make matters worse, if one of those meetings overruns, it directly spills into the next one, which is why so often you can then have days where you feel like you're behind, always trying to catch up. Now, in a perfect world, you'd solve this by putting buffers in between your meetings, where you give yourself time to slow down, to think, and really recalibrate before you move on to the next thing. However, if you have 6 meetings back to back in a day, then adding a 10-minute buffer is going to add an hour to your day, which, if we're honest, you don't have time for. That's why I found a better approach to adding in buffers is to create them. You do that by reducing your meeting time. So let's say, for instance, the meeting is running from 1 until 2. Well, you communicate up front that you have a hard stop at 1:50 or 1:55, giving you some of that time back. Or if the meeting's 30 minutes, you reduce it to 25. The key part to getting this right, though, is ensuring that you stick to that hard stop. You do that by communicating up front exactly how much time that you have, and then using the 25% rule to transition towards wrapping up, where you answer any questions, you ensure everyone's on the same page and that they have exactly what they need so that you can move on. So there you have it, 3 steps towards running more effective meetings. Just as a quick recap, the first was taking time to prepare and getting a clear outcome in advance. The second is setting clear expectations and boundaries over how much time is available. And the third is using the 25% rule to make sure that you can finish on time and that nothing is overlooked. If you have any further ideas, comments, or best practices that have worked for you, please share them in the comments below, because they may just help someone else become more effective in this area of their role. If you want to dive into this further, then in the description of this video, you can also grab a copy of my book, The Effective CEO 2.0, where I'm going to show you how to figure out what to focus on and prioritize, ways to structure your days to maximize what you get done. I'll also talk you through how to manage your workload and effectively navigate the challenges that come with your role. You can grab a copy using the link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, also please give it a like and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss future videos on how to become more effective in your role. I've been Byron Morrison. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.